Good morning. It's Saturday, July 12th, and it's just a couple minutes after 10. This is the duly noticed meeting of the Advisory Committee of Non-Voting Taxpayers. I'm Peter Halley, the current chair, and let me just run through the members list and confirm that we have a quorum, and we'll get started. Kathy Baird is here. I've seen Gary Beller is here. Ubisano. Gene Briskman.
Here.
Who is
Mike
here?
Cody is here. Lynn Flipsky.
Yes, here.
Great. Patty Deuster.
Here.
Donna Martino.
Here.
Great. Scott Ulm. Scott is not here. Pam Swan. Steve Perlman, I see, is here. Don Green, I think I saw you. Peter Kahn is here. Bill Gardner? No, and Peter Halley is here. So we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 10. We have a quorum. Thanks a lot. To get things started, will somebody move for approval of today's agenda?
So move.
Second.
All those in favor? Right
Aye.
hand. Good. That passes. Approval of the draft minutes for the meeting of June 7th. Do we have a motion to approve the minutes?
Motion to approve.
Second.
And all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay. Anybody opposed? No. It passes. Okay, that brings us to our guest speaker. We are happy to welcome Libby Gibson to speak with us again. This has become an annual exercise that helps, I think, start us off our summer season with some background as to what it has happened and what is happening in the town. And I found these to be, very, very productive and informative sessions. So, Libby, we very much appreciate your being with us today. And so why don't you lead off?
Thank you very much for having me. I always enjoy meeting with you all. If anybody is attending the Nantucket Civic League annual forum on Monday, the 21st, you're going to hear almost exactly what I'm going to tell you. So you get the preview. And if there's anything I need to change, I can incorporate it. So I thought I'd give you just an overview of a few things, not in any great detail, and I'm happy to answer questions if I can do that. So town meeting, 2025 annual town meeting. I just want to give you a little bit of an overview of that for people who might not be as familiar with it. We had 104 articles this year. Last year, 2024, we had 112, so a little bit less. The articles are grouped by category: zoning, general bylaw, real estate, budget related or financial, home rule petition. And we had 37 zoning articles that included some citizen articles. We had 22 zoning articles in 2024. We had 14 general bylaw amendments proposed, 9 real estate articles, 7 home rule petitions, all of which were resubmittals, nothing new, and 26 citizen warrant articles. We had 27 last year. We have far more citizen articles than any other town I've come across. That's just an aside. We really tried hard this year to increase our public outreach prior to town meeting. We did more videos, project explanations, and we tried to focus a little more on how town meeting works. We find that people somehow need to be educated about town meeting at town meeting, and it's really better to do that before town meeting. We incorporated QR codes in our voters guide so that people could go directly to a project page for any of the projects or the budget or other information that they could find on the website that related to a warrant article. And this year we tried out having a more comprehensive town presentation before certain articles at town meeting. We used a couple of slides. We got some pretty interesting feedback after the 2024 annual town meeting. And one of the the suggestions was the town should explain its budget before we vote on it at the very beginning. So we did that, and we reviewed touched on the strategic plan, how it relates to the budget, and some of the capital articles. I don't know how effective it was, but we gave it a try, and we'll probably do a little bit of a better job next year. We also this year tried to prepare our department heads a lot more by having pre-sessions with them, kind of dress rehearsal kind of a thing, where some of us pretended to be town meeting members and asked questions. So that might have been helpful too. 5 of the warrant articles were contingent upon ballot questions. The annual town election was on May 20th. We had 1 capital exclusion and 4 debt exclusions. We also had 1 non-binding warrant article with an associated ballot question that related to the town council. And of those questions that required both votes, the supplemental design, excuse me, appropriation for the new DPW facility, that was a $1.2 million ask that did not pass town meeting or the election. So we are regrouping on the DPW facility. The appropriation for the new Our Island home did not achieve the required 2/3 vote at town meeting. It did pass at the election, and we are doing some regrouping on that. We're working on a survey of the community to sort of figure out, what do you think about this project? Is it too expensive? Is it not understandable? That kind of thing. Not though things like, where do you want it to be? If we're ever going to bring the island home back, it is going to be at Sherburne Commons. It is not going to be anywhere else. We're also looking at the possibility of some level of redesign, removing a wing, removing the solar, removing the geothermal, somehow dealing with the Sherburne Commons housing in a different way. So lots of things are under review with that. We had a supplemental construction appropriation for the Tom Nevers bike path. That was $6.8 million. Oh, and by the way, the island home, that was $116 million. Oh, and the 116, we had a breakdown slide at town meeting, which we tried to go through. That's not the construction. That's the construction plus all of the other things that needed to be done to build the facility at Sherburne. Town Nevers, 6.85 million. That passed at town meeting and passed at the election. We had a proposed appropriation for town employee housing, design, construction, and owner's project manager services. That was 14 million. That did not pass town meeting or the election. And we had 1 capital exclusion, which was for DPW, fire, and school vehicles and equipment. That was about 1.5 million. That did pass. Our budget for fiscal 26, the current year that we're in now, totaled just about 140 million, a little over 140,600,000 rounded. That is up 7.33% over fiscal 25. The budget for fiscal 25 was up 12.5% over fiscal 24. So we're down a little bit with budget. Articles that generated the most discussion at FinCom and or the select board level included, of course, short-term rental articles. We had zoning and general bylaw articles on short-term rentals, car rental agencies, sewer district expansions and zoning, and the most discussed articles there had to do with housing proposals. Our Island home, of course, and DPW. So we're still doing all of our follow-up from town meeting. The bylaws are compiled. I think the town clerk has sent them up to the Attorney General. We're working on our procurement for the projects that were approved, assembling work groups as needed, and getting our home rule petitions sent up to the state. Non-town meeting activities, programs, initiatives, projects, things like that. We're getting ready for our strategic plan retreat that the select board has in the fall annually, and our contract with our facilitator, who also provides other support services for town administration, expired. So we have an RFP out, and actually we've got the responses back. We got 3 responses, and we're working to pin down one of them and hire them to do our consulting services. Again, regrouping on DPW Island home. Personnel. We are focusing quite a bit on hiring and retention, also housing. Highlights on hiring since last year include we are nearly, not totally, but nearly fully staffed with police and fire. We've filled more vacancies in DPW. Facilities is still very challenging with DPW. We have way too many unconsolidated buildings and facilities for the amount of facility staff that we have. We hired a deputy housing director. We've hired an additional real estate staff person. We've hired an environmental contamination coordinator in the health department. He is very focused on PFAS. We hired, I think, one additional IT staff member, and we have a cybersecurity dedicated position. We also hired a dedicated full-time projects manager that's in town admin. Their focus is larger projects, and we need at least one more. We're starting collective bargaining this fall for our union contracts that expire at the end of June of 2026. We're already starting to plan for the 2026 annual town meeting. The select board had some discussion at their meeting this week on when to schedule it. They didn't quite conclude it, so it's going to come back at their meeting on July 23rd. We have a lot of transportation projects underway. So anyone who lives in the Surfside area, we have a very large project that involves the paving and drainage and a bike path and utilities and traffic calming in the Lovers Lane, Orkawa, Monahans area. And that work is going to start. We've awarded a bid. There was a pre-construction meeting the other day, and that work will start in early September, I think. Paving is very challenging. We know that there are some roads that are not in good condition. We have a pavement management inventory, and the problem is we have one paver and one asphalt plant and way too much work for that one paver to do. We're also limited in the time of year to do the work. The weather-wise, the best time to do the work is in the summer. Traffic and logistics-wise, the worst time to do the projects is in the summer. So we have to do it on the shoulder seasons, and there's just not enough time. We're also trying to get to annual sidewalk work, sewer projects, and we have a lot of projects going on that interrupt the annual paving schedule. The third sewer force main is done, except for final paving. You'll see on the route of that project, which is all online, there are some roads that have base coat paving on them, but they are not completely finished. Gardner Street, for example, not completely done. Surfside area sewer improvements is completed except for final paving. We have some upgrades that aren't quite done at the Surfside wastewater treatment facility, and we are in design with the Somerset sewer extension project. We are working on stormwater regulations. We probably last year I talked about the waste services agreement for our solid waste facility operations, which is through a separate operator. The town does not run the facility. We contracted out. That contract was a 25-year contract. It expires at the end of November 2025. We've spent a great deal of time in the last 3 to 4 years working on an RFP for a contractor to handle the solid waste operation. Long story short, we had a lot. It went out last springish, 2024, and bids were due. Proposals were due sometime in September of 2024. We had a lot of inquiry. We had a site visit with several potential contractors, but in the end, we only had one respondent, Waste Options, which is our current operator. We have a greatly improved contract with them. It's much clearer, and there are some different responsibilities that are associated with them versus the town, and we are transitioning the contract now to get it all in place before November 30th, 2025. PFAS is taking up a huge amount of time. There's articles in the paper, I'm sure you've seen them, and not just the I&M. There was an article in the Globe last weekend, I think, about our environmental contamination coordinator. We're apparently the first one in the state, maybe the country, I'm not sure, to have one of those positions. And he is quite focused on this. DEP has selected Nantucket. I guess it's not a totally bad thing. It's not a bad thing to start doing some testing. We're one of the first communities in the state where they're going around and testing wells, and surprise, some of them have PFAS in them, which actually is really no surprise since it is the forever chemical. Facilities maintenance, we are including employee housing, we really need to examine our facilities capabilities. We just, as I said earlier, we just don't have enough staff in that division to take care of all the town buildings and all of our employee housing. We have a lot more housing now that is rented, or we own it and are renting it. And that's just, it's not just maintenance, it's tenant relations, who goes in where, do they have a pet, who pays the utilities? It's, if anybody's a landlord, imagine that times like 25 with all different people in there. We are exploring the use of AI quite a bit. And one of the areas where we're hoping to actually really seriously implement it is minutes. We have some pilot programs out there right now. And of course, you can tell AI to do your minutes, but it's a transcript, which is not minutes. However, it provides a very good base, and you can then modify the transcript into minutes. We have had a very difficult time trying to hire a minute taker for the town boards, committees, and commissions. So we're turning to AI to hopefully negate the need for a minute taker. Encroachments. We are spending a lot of time on encroachments, and we actually have a pretty decent intern program this year. And we have some real estate interns, and they are working on a presentation for the board, which will probably give to them, I think, early August, about encroachments. And these are things like hedges that extend into the sidewalk and impede pedestrian traffic. There are some people outside my window that are kind of loud. You'll shut the window. This one back.
Yeah, the other day we came back.
Sorry about that. So hedges into the sidewalk, shrubs and bushes, and I'm sure none of you have these, but stakes are very common, as well as boulders that people put along the edge of their property, and most of it is actually in the right of way. And it's obvious why they are there, but they are mostly placed in places where parking is allowed, and people are allowed to park on the side of the road. And unfortunately, some people have turned those roadsides into lawns and gardens, and they are in the right of way. So we're doing a bit of a crackdown on that. Planning for large capital projects. We have some pretty large projects on the horizon, including Baxter Road alternative access. That project will ultimately be paid for, is anticipated anyway, to be paid for through betterments. However, the town will have to front the funds for that. It's estimated to be about a $30 to $35 million project. DPW and Island Home, we're just going to have to figure something out, either ultimate closure, not immediately, but ultimately for our Island Home, if we're not going to be building a new facility. DPW desperately needs a new facility, and we're trying to look at what design changes we might be able to make. Of course, we have the issue of, you don't want to make it, you don't want to reduce the price of it by making it too small from day one, which is a habit that the town of Nantucket has. And the fire station, for example, at 131 Pleasant Street was basically too small when it was initially built. And there are some other examples like that. And it's common for municipalities to do this. You just have to bite the bullet and build it the correct size from day one. We have some parking lot improvements that we're working on. Depending on how things go with the Island Home, we have plans for a new senior center, hopefully at the Island Home site, employee housing, facilities maintenance and improvements. We are about to put out an RFP for public restroom improvements, all of the public restrooms, including downtown and Sconset. Coastal resiliency project. These are pretty huge. And we have a coastal resiliency plan with hundreds of millions of dollars of projects in it that span, of course, a long period of time, over 25 years. We are focusing right now on Washington Street, the ones that are most likely going to be the most vulnerable for the near future, including the Washington Street corridor, downtown flood barrier, Ames Ave in Matticat, Tom Nevers Park. You probably know this, but there is a lot of debris out there that is emerging from the bluff. It is not easily removed. We keep getting inquiries about, why can't you just remove it? It's an issue of getting the necessary equipment in the location it needs to be to remove it, but also once it starts getting removed, it is all way back in there. And you need permits to remove it all. So we have some funds to do design and permitting, which is underway, takes a long time. And we have an associated erosion control planning with the debris removal. So it is underway, but it isn't quick. We're spending a lot of time on communications. We have 2 people now dedicated to communications in our communications office of town admin. They're doing newsletters, social media platforms, press releases, public comment responses, radio, NCTV engagement, and we've engaged a professional communications firm to help with certain issues that require additional expertise. You might remember the right whale situation. We've been working on the offshore wind turbine blade failure settlement that just, as you probably know, came out. I want to mention public comment very quickly. Public comment is allowed at the select board meeting. People can speak up to 3 minutes on a subject that is not on the select board's agenda. Often we are finding that there is misinformation, hopefully not deliberate, or questions that are asked that we don't respond to public comment at that time. So we developed a web page that answers the public comment if there is a legitimate question or there is some very clear misinformation, and we try to get that done from one meeting to the next. So there was maybe one question at the board's meeting this past Wednesday. The answer will be read at the meeting and posted online by next Wednesday. Housing, maybe you'll have the housing director into one of your meetings, but we have a ton of things going on with housing. And just this week, the Affordable Housing Trust, myself, some other staff, and some representatives from the Planning Commission, Planning Board, and Select Board met to start planning a kind of a summit in the fall, so we can make sure we're all on the same page with goals and initiatives with housing, and we're not blocking each other unintentionally. We're probably going to have a facilitated summit. And just to name a few things that we have going on, the 31 Fairgrounds Road project is nearly done. Tacoma Green has not started yet. That's right near the public safety facility. We have properties on Orange Street, Vesper Lane, Bartlett Road. All of those are bundled into one RFP that I think people are in the process of sorting out. And again, lots of year-round and seasonal town employee housing planning, programming initiatives. Coastal resiliency planning, I won't go on about that. I just mentioned a few things, but there's a lot going on there. Long-term solid waste planning. In addition to the contract that I mentioned that we're transitioning to, we are working on waste reduction initiatives and getting those out very publicly. So you all probably, I'm sure, recycle, and we need to get additional public outreach out there about recycling, what gets recycled, how it gets recycled, the items that don't go in the recycling, all of that, and trying to encourage people to reduce waste where they can. So that's a project underway with our solid waste division at DPW. The select board strategic plan, we have 5 focus areas of that plan: transportation, environment, housing, healthy and vibrant communities, and community, and efficient town operations. Each one has a select board liaison to it. And we're trying to work over the summer of getting our focus area goals updated so that we can have that for the board's retreat in hopefully October. We're reviewing our concessions, the buildings. Some of them, we actually are a little bit wondering, is it worth redoing this building given its location? For example, Children's Beach concession. Several years ago, there was some discussion about replacing the building with a food truck or food trucks. It went over like a lead balloon in the neighborhood. And we are probably going to need to revisit that because the repairs that are needed to that building really are going to be highly expensive because it is now in a flood zone. And there's a lot of work you have to do to get your building into a flood compliant condition, including raising it. And anyway, we're we did a review of the condition of all the concession buildings about a year and a half ago. It hasn't progressed very well because of too many other priorities, but it's on the horizon. And we're planning for additional office and meeting space. We are bursting at the seams with town office space. I know everybody hates the meeting trailer. However, we don't have enough meeting space, so it has served us very well for meetings, and it's out of town, which is a little bit nice, but we're probably gonna have to look at more trailers for more office space, because we just don't have enough space. Recently completed projects include a seasonal dorm at Waite Drive. That was a $10.3 million project. That is for our lifeguards primarily. They're almost all entirely housed there, and in the winter we are looking at using it for transitional housing and or consultants and or remote workers, of which we have a growing number. We are also looking at redesigning our parking lot at 2 fairgrounds and monitoring that parking lot in a different way. It may turn into some amount of paid parking after a certain amount of time. We completed our town building window replacement project earlier this spring. The windows were really completely rotting out in many places. Anyway, it looks so much better on the outside of the town building. We reconstructed the Jenny's tennis courts. I hope some of you have actually played tennis down there. They're amazing. And the water main west of the airport, the extension there to accommodate some PFAS issues has been completed. We are facing a lot of issues that are not necessarily part of town admin's projects and initiatives, but they come up and they have to be dealt with often quite immediately and or just dealt with that weren't expected, including the offshore wind issues, the fallout from the Vineyard Wind turbine blade failure. I hope we're done with that at this point, given our big announcement yesterday, but I don't know. The level 1 drought. We are finding that people don't really believe there's a drought and they are continuing to watering. This is really a water department issue, but we are helping them with public outreach, and it's really amazing some of the reactions people have to when they're told there's a drought and they call it liberal nonsense, things like that. I mean, come on, people. New federal grant assurances. This is something that emerged after the election, and there are some other federal requirements or changes that we need to pay attention to, and that has caused some additional time to sort it out. Unfunded government mandates, no big news there, but sometimes unanticipated requests, and these mandates need to be responded to. I mentioned the PFAS testing. We have to accommodate DEP for that, even though it's their initiative entirely. They have to be trucked around the island, and that takes somebody to organize and do that. They have to bring a truck over. You can't just go down to the steamship in Hyannis and get it on the boat, as they found out recently. We have the water main projects due to the PFAS found in wells near the airport. We had to get involved in that. Citizen warrant articles, often, despite my attempting to let people know that they are not budgeted for, and sometimes they are not recommended because we don't have the resources or capacity to undertake them or implement them, they get approved anyway. And then people say, oh, gee, why isn't this being done? So things like that include short-term rental registration program, the town council study committee, and outdoor lighting. None of that was budgeted or planned for at the very beginning, but town admin is kind of tasked with figuring it out. The 40B housing project, Surfside Crossing. I don't know if we're getting to the end of that or not, but that required a lot of staff resources. Real estate issues, specifically things like property acquisitions that come up unexpectedly in which the town might have an interest. We're not planning to buy something, but this ideal property comes up and we tend to look at it because maybe we should have it. And other things that pop up that we have to deal with, like right whales and legislation proposed that would impact the steamship authority, which obviously we are very, very interested in and have and need to pay attention to. So that's my overview, and I am very happy to answer any questions. And I hope I didn't drone on too long.
Thank you. No, I think we're all out of breath, and you must be
Sorry.
too.
I kind of am too.
You know, it's always amazing to me how this little bitty town has sort of more on its plate than most, at least small and maybe medium-sized cities, or so it seems. It just, I think it's amazing that you have your fingers on all this stuff, and there are probably even more holes in the dike than you have fingers. But this is very interesting. So why don't you, those on the committee who have questions, if you would, I can only see 6 at a time, but raise your hand or speak up and ask them.
Karen?
Yep. You have to put you're muted, or somebody's muted. Are there any questions?
Yeah, Peter, I just had a quick question
Yep.
for Libby, and this may be something that's being considered with the sidewalk and the encroachment, but particularly in Upper Main Street and Milk Street by the Civil War Memorial, the brick sidewalks and the trees have just created a really dangerous situation. In fact, yesterday I was driving down Milk Street and some lady fell on the bricks because the roots of the trees are throwing the bricks out of sync. And I'm wondering, as we go down the road of sidewalk renovation, is there an alternative to bricks that won't be so damaging? Because I think the liability to the town is pretty significant if somebody falls and hurts themselves as a result of these uneven sidewalks.
Couple things on that. Number one, the town by law does have a limited amount of liability, so it wouldn't, unless there was some amazingly neglectful action that occurred, it's capped. But is there an alternative material to brick? Probably. The historic preservation community doesn't really like alternatives to brick. And what we've explored a little bit is, well, I guess not explored, in a couple of areas, the tree roots, although you have to be careful, have been cut to even out the sidewalk area, but that really takes tree people to get a good hard look at it and make sure that that root isn't going to kill the tree. And it is very challenging. When these trees were planted, I'm sure maybe nobody thought they were going to get so enormous with their gigantic roots. Actually, that Upper Main Street area, kind of by the Three Brooks, we have had that in our sights for a while to figure out just how are we going to deal with that. It is very challenging. We have the possibility of engaging, maybe we have done this. It's not quite my project, but I think we may have engaged a historic preservation sort of like sidewalk engineer person to look at how to deal with that. It's probably going to have to be some sort of situation where the sidewalk is somehow raised a bit and it gradually rises, so it's not very sudden. But yeah, other than be careful where you walk,
Yeah, no, I don't
there's no
mean
good
to
answer.
I don't mean to add to your burdens at all, Libby. I know you've got a lot going on, but that Upper Main and Milk in particular, there's a couple of trees that have grown
Yeah,
into the sidewalk, and you force people to go into the street.
yeah,
And you've got the Cisco bus and everything coming down Milk Street,
yeah.
and those people don't really slow down.
I
So
agree.
anything you could do in that area, I think would be helpful, but I realize the challenge you have with historic, and they're beautiful trees, so you don't want to cut them down.
Yeah. So I've got in the queue, Jean is next, then Gary, then Lynn, then Donna. So Jean, if you would,
Libby, thank you much for your presentation. Obviously, there's lots and lots of stuff on the town's future budget, current and future budget. I want to go back to our island home, which I know keeps getting voted down at town meeting. But it almost seems to me that at some point, the only option for our island home will be to have it done through charitable giving, as was the case in the new nursing home in Martha's Vineyard. But yet the town keeps hanging on to it, and the town hanging on to it, I think, retards the ability of private charitable giving to occur. And the town seems, the town population, and I think largely our constituency, is very generous in supporting the needs of the town. The hospital is looking at raising $50 million now for housing. I just read somewhere that the Animal Rescue League is in the process of raising $20 million for some something or other. While there's no guarantee that private philanthropy can generate the $100 million or so that might be needed for our island home, I think at some point the town has to acknowledge that that's going to be the only way that it's going to really happen. Any thoughts on whether the town, the select board and the town management have looked into the option of philanthropy and how to go about it? Because the small effort that Kathy Greider and her group and the Community Foundation are putting in ain't going to cut it when you're trying to raise tens of millions or even $100 million.
Thank you, Jane. Yes, we have looked into that. There is a fund established through the Community Foundation. And I agree, the Friends of Our Island Home nonprofit group, they just don't have the horsepower to do the type of fundraising that this project would require if it were private. And the town really can't spend taxpayer money hiring a fundraiser. You really need a professional fundraiser and fundraising effort to raise that kind of money. And we don't have the resources for that legally or otherwise. So yet there is a fund, and I understand that there were some donations given into it prior to town meeting. I don't know what the status is right now. Associated with that, we've heard suggestions that the town just don't run it anymore, just have somebody else run it, like they're doing on the Vineyard. The Vineyard project is completely different from this project. Their hospital is involved, ours is not. And they may have a nonprofit arm to theirs, but it is not a similar project. It's apples and oranges, or not even apples and oranges, not even fruits. It's totally different. There are a lot of reasons. If we could have unloaded the island home to a private nonprofit to run, we would have done that a long time ago, but no one will take it on because it is not profitable. It doesn't even come close to breaking even, and no one is going to take that on. So I don't want to say stuck with it, but we're the responsible party for now to deal with it.
Yeah. Gary next, but before Gary, just before we go, I took the opportunity about a week ago to visit our island home to sort of understand what at least I've been talking about without any direct knowledge. And I'm very impressed by two things. Number one, the current management of that home seems to be right on, and the residents, appear to belong there, and so it's a very heartening thing. And I recommend to my fellow committee members who are interested of actually putting your boots on the ground and taking a look. The other thing is that it helps to understand what the needs are at the home, and you can think about those, the whole picture in with knowledge instead of just opinions. So that's my 2 cents at this point. Gary.
Thanks, Peter, and thanks, Libby, for being with us today. I have several different subjects I'm going to mention. You might want to comment on with respect to the senior center, with respect to the old island home, our island home. As you may be aware, our committee was very concerned about the ultimate cost. It was so huge, and I know you folks are looking at ways of reducing that to something that is somehow more manageable. But one of the things that I see missing all the time, and I'm concerned about, is the fact that, let's assume you are able to figure out a plan to lower the costs and get the necessary votes to do that. No one has factored in now the cost of building a new senior center. So now we're talking about another $50 million probably, if you're going to replace the old senior center with a new one at the Creek's location where the old island home was. And I think that hopefully when the people are thinking about the total cost to the island of Nantucket, they take into consideration, in addition to the cost of the island home, it's also the cost we're going to have to deal with rebuilding the senior center. And of course, the senior center has probably 2,000 or 3,000 people that use it versus the 40 or so or 45 beds at the old island home. So there'll be a lot of strong support for building a good facility for the seniors, but it's going to cost money. That was the first comment. Second subject, just a quick one. On the GE settlement, the $10.5 million, is the town going to get any of that, or is that just really to the merchants who can prove to some extent that they had losses incurred by the windmill failure? That was the second subject. Third subject, the other day, in the last 2 days, I saw something and a little light bulb went off in my aged brain. And I said, I wonder if we could do anything with that. As you know, I'm the representative on the Coastal Resiliency Advisory Committee, and we're looking for long-term funding. What New Jersey has done is they passed a new law, and the new law puts a flip tax in. But what they did with their flip tax is we have our 2% land bank tax. New Jersey put a tax in that sales for under $1 million, there is no tax. Starting with over $1 million, it starts ratcheting up. And they have a category, the final category is any sale over $3.5 million, which coincidentally happens to be the average cost of a home on Nantucket. That will incur a tax of I think it's 3.5%. The important thing that I read about is that those funds will be used for affordable housing and coastal resilience. And we're thinking about how do we get that? So, and when I think about the land bank fees and the real estate industry saying no more taxes, the first thing I can say is that the 2% has, in my own personal view, in no way hindered real estate sales on the island of Nantucket, as you know, skyrocketing. So the fact that homes over $3.5 million for sale, so big deal if you have another 1.5%. Believe me, in my personal opinion, it's not going to affect anything. And yet, here's a chance to raise money for A, affordable housing, and B, for coastal resiliency. And with real estate prices continuing to rise, it sounds like a really good opportunity. But I know that it may be complicated by the fact that we're still fussing with the Massachusetts legislature, trying to get our little 1% on the real estate sales now. So anyway, that was the third subject. A quick mention of the fourth subject. You mentioned children's speech, and I'm a Brant Point resident, and I see one of our board members. I'm not on the board, but Carolyn is. She's on the call. I think that when we went to the July 4th activities, which were very nice on children's speech, but we looked at the state of the benches and the lawn, and we said, we really would do something. And I know that the Brant Point Association has in the past offered the town to do something to try to do the funding for improving whether it's the benches, the tables, the lawn, stuff like that. But I don't think the town has so far taken advantage of that opportunity. And I was wondering whether the town might be more receptive to it now, knowing that you have other expenses to deal with respect to the children's speech. That's all sorry to talk so much, but those are the categories I wanted to talk to you about.
Yeah.
Okay. So quickly,
Yep,
if it's okay to respond, the senior center, we have in fact factored in the cost of the senior center into our capital improvement plan. So it is out there, and yes, it is a big number. If all went as originally planned, which would be put the island home at Sherburne and put the senior center where the island home is, we wouldn't have to buy any property. And without that, there's really nowhere for the senior center to go at this point. So it remains as a topic though, and there are a lot of people who want to see a new senior center. The GE settlement, will the town get any of the money? Yes, the town will get money. There will be a process through which people can make a claim if they can document that they lost revenue as a result of the blade failure. Of course, there will be some legal fees that will come out of it. I don't know exactly what the number is that the town would end up with. That is beyond my scope of knowledge right now. But I will just say that settlement number is amazing.
Yep.
And I really would credit Select Board member Brooke Moore for that. Matt Fee as well. They were the board members designated to work on this. And I can just tell you, they spent hours, weeks, literally weeks on this. And they took a lot of public abuse that was totally unwarranted and did a really amazing job for the town. So just that. But so to really answer your question, yes, the town will end up with something. The coastal resiliency issues in the New Jersey land bank like tax, that's something to look at. The coastal resiliency, well, you know, Gary, the committee came out with several recommendations for revenue, and that was one of them. And I think that's probably sort of still under review a little bit. And by the way, the housing transfer tax is 0.5%, not 1%, but just FYI. The children's beach concession, I don't really remember anybody saying, tell us what you want to have donated. Maybe that has happened. I will definitely convey that to the Parks and Rec manager, Charlie Palaki. The lawn does look terrible right now because we are trying to abide with the level 1 drought restrictions. And that is the problem with the lawn. The benches and the tables, I agree with you. They're kind of terrible. Some of the benches, particularly the ones that face the water, those were I believe at some point those were donated. You know, they all have little plaques on them. So it's just a matter of replacing them with the plaques. And I will definitely have Charlie get in touch with you about that. It could definitely use some attention.
great, thank you.
So we, just to let you know, the queue is Lynn is next, then we have Donna, then we have Kathy, then Peter Kahn. And those are the hands that I see are raised at this point. One point in terms of the citizen warrants issue, and that is you have citizen warrants, and if passed, they may impose theory, unbudgeted costs in the town. And I'm wondering whether one of the requirements for filing a citizen warrant is to include a sort of budget impact estimate so that becomes part of the discussion. But that's just a thought. So
well,
Lynn, yeah.
Peter, just to follow up on that thought, that came up several years ago, and there is in fact a form that is online that is associated with the form to complete a citizen warrant article petition, which has exactly that information. It does get transmitted to the finance committee. However, not everybody fills it out. You can't mandate it that it be required, but we do urge people to fill it out. Some are better than others.
Yeah, good. Lynn?
Okay. Libby, thank you so much for coming and sharing all that information. And thank you for coming to the Sconset Civic Association meeting. So you heard what the issues are for us. And I'm sure my whole committee looks forward to their own civic association meetings to hear what is on everyone's mind. And the article this week that was in the New York Times that focused on Nantucket and affordability is a sad comment on how our island operates when the fire chief can't even have housing that's sustainable, and our own postmistress in Sconset has lost her housing. So I'm interested in a little bit more on how hard and what the plan is of the town pursuing a luxury tax on house sales that would be dedicated to affordable housing, because it seems like money is the biggest obstacle to providing that kind of housing.
There's a pending home rule petition. I don't know if I would call it a luxury tax, but it would be, it's the 0.5% that I mentioned on real estate sales that would go into a fund for affordable housing. That home rule petition has been pending since, I want to say, 2016 at the legislative level. It is supported by all, I shouldn't say all, it is supported by the Nantucket Association of Real Estate Brokers. It is not supported by the Massachusetts Association of Real Estate Brokers. And that is perhaps why it hasn't progressed very well at the legislative level. It does require legislative approval. I heard, I think earlier this week from the housing director that there was going to be an effort between the Vineyard, the Cape, and Nantucket to redouble efforts to get a statewide housing transfer tax approved, and the state housing agency, I cannot recall the exact name of the agency, it's changed a few times. Secretary Augustus is his name. He's going to be here sometime soonish this summer, and we'll be hearing from Nantucket Islanders and departments about the housing crisis that we have, and we have met with him before. So that's the effort. It is a very strong local effort, but our legislators have to approve it.
Thank you.
Donna.
Libby, thank you very much for spending time with us today and your very helpful presentation on what's going on with town administration and what's going on with the island. I was curious about the Town Council Study Committee, which I have been a non-voting member on. A lot of work and a lot of hours were put in for this. I'm wondering if has there been any discussion about the results that Joe Grouse and the group are going to present to you and to the town admin about morphing into something else, to maybe looking at town government, the annual town meeting as it stands now? Is there some way we could discuss moving forward with the committee and how it can improve the annual town meeting?
Very timely question. At the board meeting on Wednesday, this past Wednesday, and everybody feel free to go watch the video if you would like. At the end of the committee appointments, they did annual committee appointments this week, there was some discussion about whether or not the Town Government Study Committee should be reconstituted. That is a bylaw that lays out that a town government study committee should be constituted every 5 years and review town government. So the last time that group was convened, it was pre-COVID, and they submitted a report in 2021 that went to town meeting in 2022, which had a series of charter amendments. That is a home rule petition that is still pending. It was reapproved at town meeting this year. And it is in the process of being sent to the legislature again. It's been approved like 3 times. And it did have a minor amendment this year that, just so you know, one of the charter amendments was to require signatures of 50 citizens for a citizen warrant article, as opposed to the state mandated requirement of 10. And there was an amendment at town meeting to change it from 50 to 25. That was the only change that's been made since the initial approval. So the board had some discussion about this committee. Should we set it up? We've just come off of the town council study committee, and are we going to launch right back into a town government study committee? So what they decided to do was find out from the legislature what is going on with our home rule petition. When do you think it'll be approved? And then rediscuss a town government study committee.
Okay.
And by the way, and thank you for mentioning it, Donna, you know better than I do, but the committee, town council study committee, is working on a report for the select board that I think is intended to be submitted to them for discussion in August, maybe,
Yes.
or early September. Yeah, okay.
Yes,
So that'll be coming.
thank you, Libby.
Okay, so we have Kathy next, Peter Kahn, and then we have a non-member, Carolyn Balzer, who is going to have a question too. And that's everybody I have in the queue at this point. So Kathy?
Okay, thank you. Thank you so much for coming to our meeting every year. It's so informative, and then we get that preview, which is really great. So I was at the select board meeting Wednesday, which you know about, and I just had some more thoughts about follow up on things I said there. It seemed to me that, when we're talking basically about the short-term rental issue, which you mentioned, and that fact that the town is considering having some sort of formal mediation to try to resolve that. And one of the things that, if you listen to the comments that were made at the meeting, was it seemed that there's two things involved there. One is that people are completely, and first of all, the town, the voters were very close to getting a 2/3 on the fix of the zoning, and being in the courtroom where I was supposed to testify, but then turned out I did not at the land court hearing. It was very obvious that the judge was really tired of this issue, as tired of it as we all are on the island, and wanted it done. And I think that I was not surprised at all about his ruling, which basically satisfied no one. So he's put the onus back on the town to fix the zoning. One thing that's not known at all, I don't think, in the public, and wondering if there should be some sort of public statement or release of information. I know you're doing outreach to see if people support mediation as a way to resolve all of this. I think that one thing is key is that if people understood that the reason that references to rentals and leases and anything like that would specifically permit rentals on Nantucket was just inadvertently removed from the town zoning in a cleanup, technical amendment in 2015. It was a cleanup act. It wasn't debated. It was one of those articles that just went right through, because it was supposed to be just cleaning up some language, but inadvertently some language that would have protected rentals was removed. If that information were known, or if the town were to say to put that language back in, or propose to put that back in as a warrant article, I think that might help. People would know that the town never meant to take it out. It was an omission. And as part of the outreach, if people understood that, and also if the town were willing to, and this is where I don't know if that's possible, to put forward something that has to do with the trust issue. And I think that commentary came out in several things people said at the select board. In other words, people don't believe the town will enforce things. And for example, recently somebody in public comment asked, how will the town enforce the corporation prohibition in short-term rentals? And the response that was sent back was, well, you have to attest and check a box that you are in compliance, but you don't have to prove that every person on your ownership information is a natural person. You don't have to provide that evidence. And so I don't understand why the town wouldn't require that, and wouldn't be enforcing the existing requirements, such as for renters, for owner operators to submit their rental information on a quarterly basis. That ability is not in the current registry. So if those things were collected and people were required to do them, I think that the voters might have enough confidence that things aren't going to run away and run amok, which is what one of their fears is. So that kind of thing, I think, might go a long way without doing anything, other than just putting the law back the way it was and ensuring enforcement. And maybe that would give enough comfort for people to actually fix the zoning. So I guess, what do you think the possibility of doing something like that and having the town step forward and make this statement and say, here's what we're going to do, as a way to get it moved forward? Because I think we were close on getting it passed. Sorry for the long explanation.
I don't know that the board really concluded its discussion on that, exactly what you're questioning. And maybe they will at the next meeting where this is coming up, which is July 23rd. And if the mediation idea progresses, then that would be something to include in there, I would think. Part of the town's perceived lack of enforcement has to do with the need for the resources to do the enforcement. And we advertise for a short-term rental coordinator, which can easily be paid for through the fees. We think we get 3 applicants, and in the end, none of them accepted the job and or weren't qualified. And now I'm told we may have someone who might be able to do the job remotely. And maybe there's some aspect of the job that can be done remotely, but if we're going to get into things like inspections, then somebody probably kind of needs to be present. So it's been hard to secure the resources that we need to enable the proper enforcement like you're talking about. And that's not to say we're not trying, but it's difficult.
Could you have a volunteer committee help you with that?
Probably not. I would say the town council would probably advise that really needs to be a town-owned function.
Okay, well, I was thinking of just provide the information to that person who's going to be hired, and they would make the decisions, just the legwork kind of thing.
Yeah, I don't know. I can put that in the queue of things to talk about.
I think the mediation is just, I think when you put the outreach out, people are going to be saying, no, we're tired of mediating. We're tired of this. We just want it done. And I mean, I think you got that feedback from everybody that was on the call, that that's just not the way to go. So appreciate it. Thank you very much.
Okay, Peter Kahn and then Caroline Balser.
Thanks, Libby. Good to see you again. I just want to go back to the STR issue just to get a little more clarification. I had the opportunity to watch the select board discussion. I guess what's confusing to me are a couple of things. One, is there consideration for a special town meeting this fall? And so the whole issue of timing, and that ties into this idea of mediation. As a lawyer, and several people in this committee are, and we know that mediations are only as good as the input, and of course the quality of the mediator. But you can't. This is, given the history here, this is not something that's going to happen overnight, so it's going to take some time. And I'm just curious whether there's enough time, even if people can get together, to get that done before a special town meeting in the fall, and whether or not we should just sort of realize that it's not going to happen until the spring. Second, I think, if a mediation is going to work, all parties need to be at the table. This is an unusual situation because it's not a legal case in the sense that all the parties, the legal case has got a very limited parties here, the town and a specific homeowner. But as we know, there are a lot of interests. And so I'm curious how the town is going to determine who's going to be at the table. We certainly would want to be at the table. As you know, we have participated actively in this issue. We were the ones who brought the Dormant Commerce Clause legal issue to the attention of the board and turned this around, at least on that issue. So that's important to us. And finally, I guess Kathy raised it. I didn't get an understanding of and I'm not sure I understand fully the issue, but this reference to the idea that there was something in the town documents previously that seemed to indicate that rentals, vacation rentals were legal, but that in some revision in 2015 that language was inadvertently dropped. I don't, so I don't know anything about that, but I'm curious to hear your views on it. Thank you.
Okay, so whether or not we're gonna have a special town meeting this fall, I don't think we've closed the door on that and locked it. But I would say the door is mostly closed. And I agree, mediation is not going to happen overnight. There will need to be an effort to get the stakeholders, all interests at the table. And there wasn't a specific methodology outlined for how exactly that would happen. But overall, I think it would be something along the lines of trying to align the different groups that have their specific interests together and bring them in as groups, rather than a whole bunch of individuals coming in. But that is not completely laid out. And is there time to do all this before a special? We had previously talked about the possibility of a special when we were talking about having one at the beginning of November. And I would start to get a little bit panicky if we were into August not having a total resolution on this. And I sort of see that's the way we're going. So in my mind, there's not a lot of, I think in everybody's mind, there's not a lot of time to do this. And if we're being realistic about it, the board isn't even talking about this again till July 23rd. We'd have to find a mediator. We'd have to set up the process, give people time to come, have the mediator, do their mediating and sort out what is more or less the consensus. And that I'm just guessing that's probably going to take a solid month, if not more. So I just don't really see that realistically there's enough time to do that in time for a special. I don't really know either what was omitted in 2015. That is beyond my scope of knowledge.
Okay. If I just to follow up, it's not even a question, it's a comment. I mean, I think with regard to the parties at the table, I think the short-term rental committee, the initial one where you, I think was a good way to go, where you really did have interest groups there and I think those same groups sort of still exist. And so that 9-member panel, if I recall correctly, was pretty well represented, and it might be the same sort of group. Okay.
Yeah, agree.
Okay. Yeah. Thank you.
Carolyn. Carolyn Balser? Yeah.
Thank you. I was just thank you for taking my comments since I'm here as a guest. And nice to see you, Libby. I did just recognize that in Kathy's comments about the KP Law brief that I have been very interested in. It sounds like, and it's sounding like to me in my interactions with people, that no one is aware of this brief. It is publicly available. And Libby, I'm surprised to hear that you haven't seen it. And so I just sent it to you. Because that's the topic that I want to follow up with from Kathy's comments. It's a very clear, I think, 2-page document that contains the planning director's statement confirming that there's, I think it's one sentence that's related to the terms use in the zoning code that were inadvertently cleaned out of our zoning code in 2015. I can't remember the article number, but it was referred to as a cleanup article when I went to investigate it. And it's so clear and simple, the understanding of how it happened, because it's very specific, because it's in answer to Judge Vay's query of the town of Nantucket. So it contains all the explanation and it's understandable. And I feel strongly that if the residents could read that or have it be known that it would go a long way to restore some peacefulness around this topic, because there's a lot of misinformation. And even with the statistics that have been produced by NARAB, the town, myself, around the nature of vacation rentals on Nantucket, with the propaganda that is still coming from a political action committee, it's just not possible to get consensus on the facts. And this is the real problem. So I would love to see if the town could release a simple statement, since it's public information, nobody did anything wrong, there's no gotcha, this week before the next select board meeting when we discuss mediation. The other question I wanted to follow up with is, I do have a background as a psychologist. I have understanding of facilitation and mediation, both. And I'm so confused. Is this mediation that's being discussed, is it a legal mediation in lieu of the lawsuit? Is it a psychological mediation? Is it a community mediation? Or is it a legislative mediation? And if it's a legislative mediation, as somebody who's just finishing up on the town council study committee and who knows way more about the town government than I ever thought I would, I don't see how being behind closed doors, which was another one of the ideas, with a mediator who's not a voter, to talk with only a handful of the voters, I don't know how that could be seen as a democratic process on Nantucket. So if you could clarify that, thank you.
Okay, first, I didn't mean to say I hadn't seen a brief. I probably have, but I am physically unable to read every single thing that comes in, so I probably didn't read it yet. And I probably should have read it some time ago, but I'll look for it. But you said you just sent it, so I'll be sure to read it. I'm not quite sure what the question is in there, but the issue of the mediation, I don't think I'm the answerer of that. I think that is a good question to ask at the board meeting next time they talk about this. I know it's not legal. I know it's not psychological. It's not legislative. I guess I'd call it community. And the idea being, is there a way to get consensus from all the stakeholder groups that have been interested in this from day one? I think that's the general concept, but I know there's also concern about who and how people are invited and that all of that sort of thing. And I think there's concern on the board about that as well. So I'm not quite even sure how it's going to eventually resolve.
Okay, that was the last question that I see a hand up for. I think our group has exhausted itself with questions. Libby, I sense that you are not exhausted and maybe never will be, which is good for all of us. And I very much appreciate the time and thoughtfulness today and every day of the year. So thanks a lot, and we'll look forward to next year.
Yeah, and spread the word about the forum. It's Monday the 21st at 10 at the Athenaeum Great Hall.
And at the Athenaeum, yeah,
Yep.
as usual. Great.
Thank you, Libby.
Thank you very much,
Thank you,
Libby.
guys.
Yeah,
Thank you so
thanks.
much.
Thanks so much.
Bye-bye.
I appreciate
you.
you all.
Thank
Thank you
you.
for being on the committee.
Bye-bye now.
Have a great
Bye.
weekend.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Okay, so let's get on with our agenda. Obviously, let's see, next thing is the membership appointment status election officers for this fiscal year, the 2026. So I guess the first thing I'd like to cover is just make sure that everybody who is on, and the record should reflect, I think that Pam Suana has joined now, and Lee Busano, who I missed in the first go round, is here. So I think we have just about everybody maybe except
We don't have Scott and we don't have Bill.
Scott and Bill Gardner, yeah. Good. So for those of you who remain on this line here, has everybody who is up for reappointment now been reappointed and sworn in? Yeah.
Peter,
Yep.
if I may, I've been reappointed, but I just got on island. So next week, I hope to be sworn in.
Okay, yeah, that's great. It's this, I guess, just an issue right now of who can vote on this stuff and who can't vote on this stuff. Lou?
When you say, I handed my
wait, Lou.
documents to the woman in Libby's office. What else was I supposed to do?
But
And I think I got an email back that I was accepted, but I wasn't sworn in.
You have to go get sworn in.
Yeah,
You
they
Town
actually,
Clerk's office.
have to go to the town hall,
Town clerk's office.
swear you in, and so just bring an ID with you.
yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, it's we've been back and forth on this swearing in thing since the pandemic, because there's some indication that there really is no requirement to be sworn in, but the town council has apparently taken the position that everybody on the committee has to be properly sworn in under Massachusetts law, and they have the official positions instead of those of us who just
Who should I call to arrange for the swearing in?
You don't
Just
have
show
to,
up.
just show up there at
Town
10
clerk's
in the
office.
morning. There's someone in the town clerk's office. They'll do it.
It'll take 2 seconds. You can show
Yeah.
up at.
Oh, I know, I did it before, but
yeah,
didn't.
but do we have a name for him? And it's
Sure.
usually, is it Maureen or
Nancy Holmes.
Nancy?
Nancy,
Nancy's the town clerk, but one of her assistants is there, and she swears you in, and she's doing other stuff.
Pain in the
Show
butt.
up there.
And
Yeah.
Lou, the other one,
Yeah, can you hear me?
Yeah.
yes.
Okay, just, I was sworn in on Wednesday because, people down at town hall forgot to notify me that my term was up. And, received an email from Maureen in, Erica Mooney's office. She thought that I had gone down there to get sworn in when I had stopped down to pick up a couple of permits for a partial street closure for a wedding. Make a long story short, I stopped in and saw her. We walked over to the clerk, raise your hand up, get yourself sworn in, sign my name a couple of times, and it's done.
All right.
Okay, good. It's okay. So then I guess the question is we should now proceed to elect our officers for the current year, and those who are duly sworn in members of the committee can vote. I think everybody can voice their opinions or whatever, I guess. So let's proceed that way. Okay. So why don't we start with we have 3 positions that by law have to be filled each year. The chair, the vice chair, and the secretary. So why don't we start out with the chair? Any nominations?
Yes, I have one.
Peter, you've got your hand raised.
I do. Am I recognized? Yes.
You're recognized.
I would renominate the current chair. I think he has done an excellent job and has given all the issues that are currently pending that seem to have continued over. I think it makes some sense to have some continuity here. So I would put forward the name of Peter Halley.
And is there any second?
I second that.
second,
Second,
Any discussion? And I must say, I'll put my fingers in my ear. And any other nominations also, yeah. Okay, hearing none, without my fingers in my ears, and with my earphones in, let's proceed. And all those in favor, say
Aye.
Aye.
I,
Anybody opposed? Hearing none. Okay, well, thank you very much. I basically appreciate the opportunity to continue in this position and hope to fulfill the role. And I think this is a very good group, and one of the pleasures is meeting with all of you on a regular basis. So thank you. Vice Chair, nominations for Vice Chair. I'll nominate Peter Kahn. And again, you know, in my role, Peter has certainly been very, very important in terms of the work that he's done and the attention that he brings to his office and his, I think, his good judgment as well. And he has advocated on behalf of items that the committee has supported. And I think that if Peter's willing to continue, he ought to.
I second it.
Yep, second.
Any further nominations? Okay, then all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay, and all those opposed. So now we're down to the secretary, and of course we wouldn't be here without Kathy, and I nominate Kathy if she is willing to continue. I find her, you know, an articulate person with good ideas, and a lot of energy, and I appreciate that. So I nominate Kathy.
And most importantly, she understands how to run the Zoom.
Yeah, exactly.
But that's just one of the many attributes.
Many
It's
skills.
a
We
thankless
need
task.
Kathy.
Yes,
Second.
I second.
Okay.
Yep, second.
Any other nominations? Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Anybody opposed? Okay, well, thank you. And I look forward to continue to work with everybody. As we say, we don't have a voice, we don't have a vote, we have a voice. And I think that we have in some way helped through the work that we've done. And there's more to be done. So, okay. Update on the Town Council Study Committee, although I have a feeling, Donna, we've gotten sort of an update from you in your question earlier.
Yeah. Really, there isn't. Obviously, you know, it was not approved at the annual town meeting. We are, as a committee, we are still deciding if we move forward, how we move forward, or if we just disband. And as Libby mentioned also, we are, Joe Grouse and the vice chair of that committee are preparing a final report for the select board. So we are meeting next week or the week after, and to be determined. We'll just decide what's going on. Thank you.
Well, thank you for your service on that committee.
Peter?
My pleasure.
Carrie?
Question for Donna. Donna, in
Yes.
order for the committee to continue, does the committee need to be reappointed by the select board?
Yes.
Okay.
So Donna, and this final report that is being drafted, my suggestion
Yes.
is actually it's two suggestions that I think there ought to be some concept, if this is a wind-up report, that this issue ought to be revisited periodically. You know, sort of the Jeffersonian provision of a statement that the little revolution every 20 years or something is a good thing. That it deserves to be revisited from time to time, number one. Number two, your question earlier of Libby today regarding the possibility of this committee or another committee being appointed to work to improve town meeting has a lot of resonance, because, you know, one of the reasons for the town council concept was to improve on the legislative process and the governance process overall. And so, well, I don't have any ideas to offer on how to improve town meeting. I think that would be a good thing for people to look at and come up with some ideas that might actually be helpful. So
We're looking into that to see if
Yeah.
there's some way the committee can assist or morph into something. And actually Libby alluded to that as well. So we'll see.
yeah, yeah,
Thank you for your suggestions.
thanks.
Donna, does anybody talk about in this day and age, with so much technology available, can they expand how to actually vote and have an additional system for people who don't have all night and all day to sit in a town meeting but want to vote? Or is there, again, a suggestion to, and Libby alluded to it, about short, concise, here are the facts of the budget, or here are the facts. People don't have time to do all that, but those are suggestions that would enhance at least a beginning of a change to the current situation. So there are definitely avenues to go on.
I agree, you know, Patty. I think that's under the umbrella of improvements for annual town meeting. I don't know if that's our purview, but it's definitely a good suggestion. And when I meet with the other members next week or the week after, I will present that. It definitely is. People don't have a lot of time for this. And that's one of the criticisms of annual town meeting, and certainly would be a great improvement.
Maybe
Right.
somebody could talk to the IT person in town there's an IT person, hired by town to say, what are some options on how to incorporate a vote, that kind of thing before you get to the yes or no stage, to say, here's some options.
Well, I think the whole process is taking a lot of time. And I think if they can distill that and make it more concise and say, okay, you have 2 minutes to discuss. But then once it is opened up to the voting public, that's where the time goes away. That's where the time is spent. But yeah, IT, that's certainly a thought. That's a good idea.
I have a couple of comments on the subject. First, the question I always raise is whether or not the state of Massachusetts would permit, if the town voted in favor of it, electronic voting. Up until now, I am under the opinion, and I haven't done any of the research myself, that it is not currently legal in the state of Massachusetts to have the voters vote like that. What I did learn in my previous years on this committee, doing some research, is that even though we cannot vote electronically because we have the annual town meeting, to the extent that some towns have adopted a representative form of government, they are permitted, and in fact, they have, in some instances, actually used electronic voting. I forget which one of these areas, Falmouth or somebody like that, that had had 200 representatives representing the whole jurisdiction, and they were permitted to use electronic voting, but we are not. And
But I don't think that you'd want it. I don't think that would fly around here, electronic voting. There's too much distrust of it. But what you could do is offer to have a paper ballot with somebody at the end of the night, if they want to bring a license and a paper vote to town, and then have that recorded. There's options. I'm just saying that with what we have, I think we can do better.
I agree, which is one reason why there was a citizen warrant and the town council study committee was formed and was rejected. So our recommendation was rejected. So going back to representative form of government, yes, that works, but that means going back and suggesting that. I don't think that's, personally, I don't think the voters are interested in changing the basics.
Yes, those 10% of the people aren't going to change the way they control the island now, so we know that. By the
Yeah.
way, the other comment I had is that the town has had a practice, and they talked about it at this week's select board meeting. The practice has been that they alternate every other year. One year they have the annual town meeting one day, which is preposterous, which is what we had last year, where you have to be there at 8:30 in the morning until 8:30 at night. And so nobody shows up. Many people just don't show up at all because it's ridiculous. But this year, because it's an alternative year, at least for next year, they're talking about scheduling the meeting on 3 evenings directly. So instead of a full day Saturday, they're talking about, setting up 3 hours Monday and 3 hours Tuesday and 3 hours Wednesday at 5:30 or later, so that people who are actually working for a living can actually come to the meeting and vote. So that's the practice. And I think the next meeting, what they were talking about, at least a few days ago, was to have that kind of an annual town meeting next year, not the full day.
Interesting.
And that would make some sense. It
Yeah.
would be interesting is whether, Gary, if this is the way it has been done for a
Yes.
while,
Yes,
where there's data to show that there's better attendance at that, extended
No.
meeting.
no, doesn't help the attendance much because people who are handicapped can't do it. People who have children, young children, and babysit, all of that stuff. That's the problem.
Well, I do think that even though, because of the existence of the town council study committee, it is really encouraging the folks for the annual town meeting to take a look at procedures. And that is an outcome of this particular committee. And more should be done, and hopefully it will. More changes, we'll see.
Okay, so thanks a lot for that. We can go on because I would like to get finished before noon, and I think we can do that. The identification of key issues of concern for non-voting taxpayers that we should, devote time and thought to. I think that's the appropriate thing to do at least once a year at the beginning of our year. And I have a short list, which I'll read off slowly, and I'm sorry for not including this in advance. But it seems to me that most of them are issues that we have addressed in the past, and that remain, issues of concern for non-voting taxpayers. The STR issue, which we discussed somewhat today, traffic continues to be one of those insoluble issues. Stormwater issues, with this drought, it's been sort of a blessed relief from the stormwater problems, but they will inevitably return to our neighborhoods. Our Island Home, climate change / resiliency. We have Gary on that committee, and I thought we had a really great presentation from
Yeah.
within the last 3 or 4 months. The form of government, we've discussed that a little bit more today, and I think that's something that will continue to be an issue, if not in form, but at least in terms of how the government functions, and might function better. Long-term finances, and good part of Libby's discussion today was about all these capital projects. And I think that is a great concern, at least to me, as I look out to the future and think about what the financial burdens that the town really has to shoulder are, and keeping apprised of them. And then lastly on my list is noise, the continuing issue of noise. And I know Lou, for example, we still have to address noise from the park out in Tom Nevers. If indeed Tom Nevers doesn't erode away as they clear whatever has to be cleared out there. I understand you're getting a bike path, so you'll have some new source of noise. And
I don't think that's going to give us a lot of noise. I think you'll have more people walking dogs than riding bikes.
yeah, but hopefully nobody's going to get, hit by a car, as one of the prominent town lawyers was hit last year walking on the street.
I just hope that they finish the bike path before we lose the total park
Yeah.
because of all the erosion.
Anybody else have ideas or think that any of those, really should not be something that we devote time to?
I will give you an update on the noise issue. Libby has come out very strongly for accepting what the Sconset Civic Association shared with the Nantucket Civic League. So there are multiple civic associations pursuing this, and Libby wants the select board to take it on. So it is going to be more fast-tracked than we anticipated, in a good way, so that all the rules apply not just to the historic district, but to the entire island.
Good. Is there something in writing that could be circulated to this group so that they can be up to date on whatever the proposal is?
I can check, but I'm sure it's being fine-tuned.
Okay.
I shared it originally, so
Yeah.
I will ask.
Okay, I'm glad when I asked that question, I was afraid you're going to say you sent it to me 3 times already, and I ought to check my inbox.
Well, it might be something we would want to join in with the other
Yes.
associations.
Yes,
Good
and
reading.
I've shared that with them, that we had talked about this before and we're all positive about making changes.
Yeah, Peter, on your list, I think that's a very comprehensive list. The only thing I might urge us to think about is more of a cost-benefit analysis as we think about the island home and the DPW and the coastal resiliency. We really need to have more of an economic analysis of some of these things. I don't quite know where we get that, but like the island home was a case in point. At the costs of that were not supported by any data.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think that's a good point. In a way, on a lot of these issues, the economic analysis actually does come up, but in a very different way. And that is when people say, okay, how are you going to enforce that? Because enforcement is, time consuming and costly. So that's not the way it comes up, obviously, with respect to the Old Island Home or some of these other issues, but for a lot of requests on more regulation, the issue becomes, okay, we can have all these regulations, but how are you going to enforce them? The most recent example, maybe a positive example, is the enactment of fines for water violations during the drought. Realized there was rules, but there was no penalty for violating the rules, and now somebody is going to have to figure out how to enforce the latest drought rules. Donna, and then Peter.
And then Pam has her
yeah.
hand up too, but you can't see it
Yeah.
for some
I
reason.
Thank
can't see
you,
it.
Kathy.
I guess one thing that came out of the Town Council Study Committee, which was really important, I think, is we had talked about increasing the salary. And actually, I don't know if that's something that we would get involved in, but the select board spends hours. I mean, example, Libby just talked about Matt Fee and Brooke and how they spent hours and weeks working out I guess, a pretty good settlement from GE. I think the select board should be paid more.
They just got a
And that
raise.
came out of our discussions with the Town Council Study Committee. Is that something we can promote or advocate?
Donna, their compensation was raised this year.
To what?
It, they added an extra couple of $1,000, I think.
Considering what they do and what I've learned, it should be a lot more. And if we're not doing a town council, we should really pay these people a lot more money.
Yeah.
They spend days, weeks, months working on projects.
So I think probably somebody ought to look into how the town council compensation is set. In my own mind, I think about it this way, is that there in any government, including this government, there is a people need to get paid for what they do, especially if you need to pay them to attract qualified people. And there's also an item of public service in there, which is psychic income, let's say.
Right.
I can't pretend to know what the correct balance is. But I agree with you that the people are putting in an inordinate amount of work. And the only question to me in terms of increasing the pay is, are there more people, more really qualified people who might seek these positions if they could afford to do them, and more pay might give them that opportunity.
Well, actually, what I think is it's really, obviously, this is because they are really appreciate serving the community. I think higher pay is an acknowledgement of their service.
Okay. Peter Kahn, you've got your hand
Yes,
up.
I think I would add maybe I would add parking, particularly downtown parking to the list. Maybe that's part of
Parking,
what
yeah.
you thought about in traffic, but that also ties into something else that's not on that clearly is not on the list, and maybe it's not an issue for debate, but we have discussed in the past trying to build a reference sort of list of expertise among the non-voting taxpayers, and the parking issue is a good example where we have, for not only Gary, who's done, who's put forward what's happened in New York, but actually even more so, we've got the head of LAS Parking, the largest international parking operation in the world, here on island. Just as an example, and there's a multitude of other people here on various issues, and it's not easy to. I mean, we've just got to figure out a way to tap into that. So I want to put that on there, and I think we could really, if our mandate is to advise, the best advisors may be those who have more information to give to us to be able to advise the town. So
Yeah. Good. Anybody else?
Kathy, I'm still here.
Okay. Good.
Pam, so anyway, I wanted to just make a comment about traffic and safety. And this is something that I think doesn't just affect our group, but affects island-wide. I am hearing from a lot of full-time residents of the island that they are just floored by the fact that money was poured into redoing intersections, and I'll name a few of them, the Milestone Pulpus Road, the one on, Sankaty and Sconset, that were redone when they weren't faulty, and they have been made significantly more dangerous. I had a conversation with Mike Burns about this last week. I didn't like him 20 years, just between us, I didn't enjoy working with him 20 years ago when he did something in Sconset that has been a continual problem. He said the Pulpus Milestone Road thing was a compromise, that he wanted a rotary there. I don't know how many of you drive that, but if you have to go right into town, you can no longer see to your left because the lanes are so close together and there's almost always a Toscana truck taking a left. I've heard similar concerns about Tom Nevers. So what I'm getting at here is when we're trying to tie to the financial, I don't know how we can get involved or influence things that get done that are financially significant that don't need to be done, and that money could be used elsewhere. I also think that Libby's really, really open to input and expertise. So Peter, that's a great thing to put together. I know I've been called in to meet with her a few times about some issues where she wanted to like pick my brain, and she's gone out and talked to numerous people about noise issues, traffic issues, parking issues. I just don't know how we get a bigger bang for the buck to actually get ideas to them. But I think there's just a great deal of frustration in what gets done and how the money gets spent.
Yeah.
Um,
Part of that is, Pam, I think, is just having sort of a distant early warning system amongst us, as to, oh, this is happening.
Yeah.
And maybe that's something that we ought to, is a matter of concern, and we ought to weigh in on. And sort of bringing the ideas, and maybe the best way to do that is to drop us a note, but mainly Kathy, to get things on the agenda.
Yeah.
For discussion, and just a little, one sentence that then whoever volunteers that sentence ought to feel responsible for filling in the rest of the paragraph at a meeting.
Peter, in that regard, I mean, I think this Pulpus Road milestone intersection is an interesting example. I mean, I don't know if any of us knew that it was going to be changed. Obviously, we would have been sort of interested, and yet on the other hand, it's hard for me to imagine that something like that, a project that as significant as that, didn't go through some sort of public hearing. I mean, you normally would expect the traffic people to have to do that. So I'd be curious how that happened, why we weren't alerted to it, because it's amazing to me how many people are talking about that.
I think, Peter,
It was.
well,
It
but the
was shared
problem
with us.
It
Yeah,
was?
Yes, and
I
it
missed it
was
then.
on the town website, and they had multiple meetings. When Mike talked to us, it was one of his presentations that he wanted to have a rotary, but it's too close to the other rotaries. There would be modifications, and there were drawings, and it was all on the website.
And the other thing too is I think that the state wanted to do it, and it's a
Yeah.
state
Well, it's a
road.
state road.
Milestone
Yeah.
is a state road.
And so they didn't have full control over that decision. And I
Exactly.
agree, the Tom Nevers one's terrible. It's not any better.
Right. Well, the state comes in and makes a decision on something that they don't drive every day. So
Right.
we all drive it and see the visibility and the traffic issues. And Peter, as far as parking, we have a parking lot. We call it Old South Road.
Yeah, right. No, but going back to the state, I mean, but I don't know. I mean, if in fact, obviously I missed it, so it's my fault. But was there, when a state does something, there's also public hearing. So I just think maybe monitoring that within our committee even more.
It was
so
a long time ago, and it just finally got moved
Okay.
forward.
Yeah.
I mean, it was
But
like,
here,
But-
Peter
Yeah.
I have to
Halley,
drop off in a few minutes, just so you know, Peter.
yeah, so it's
okay. Can I just make one suggestion or
Sure.
an idea? Why don't we approach Libby and ask if we can serve on FinCom, or someone who would like to serve on FinCom, who has the financial expertise, and to serve like I did on the Town Council Study Committee? I mean, if there's somebody who's interested in doing that.
There are rules. I don't know who sets those rules, but when they advertise for committee openings, there are certain committees which require to be residents, voting residents, and I think the Finance Committee is one of those.
Well, maybe we can start something different.
Well,
Well,
here's you
here's
can just
what you-
observe. You can be an observer. There's no reason
Yeah.
why anybody can't be an observer.
Exactly. We
Well,
can
that's-
do that.
You can always go to the
Always
meeting.
do
I go
that.
to the meetings
Always.
all the time.
Yeah.
I
I
attend meetings.
testified at FinCom on certain of their things and that related to Sconset, and certainly you are given the time to do that. So if we follow every item that is in the town annual town meeting, we have ample opportunity starting in December of every year to comment as they review each of the warrant articles.
So that's the way we can participate, at least
Yes.
at this point.
Yeah,
Yes.
and they issue an agenda in advance of every meeting, so you know approximately what is coming up, approximately, because sometimes these get, pushed back.
So then that's an opportunity to offer some input or opinion or expertise, right?
Yes.
That's right. But we have two kinds of input that we can offer. One is input on behalf of the committee
Mhm.
that the committee has approved. And so it becomes a committee, communication. The other is as a committee member in your own personal summer resident capacity, you can speak on behalf of yourself on these things. And, half the time or more, probably you'll be speaking on behalf, people would agree with what you're saying. But that's the way to do it. Okay. So I think we have a generalized, we don't have to beat this all to death, but we have generalized agreement on a whole host of issues that continue to be of interest. The meeting schedule, I was thinking that trying to get the stormwater guy back the next time, but I'm also hearing maybe we ought to ask Mike Burns for another presentation. Is that?
I don't agree. I'm going to
No?
tell you honestly, he's going to give us the dog and pony show. He does not address the issues. And I tried to work with him again on correcting something in Sconset, and he passes it off to DPW. I just don't think he's like, we could do it, but we're going to get the same presentation probably he did in Sconset, which was kind of useless.
We talked about getting the DPW guy up anyway, whether
Yeah.
for, and then I think he's overdue, and hopefully he's come back from his honeymoon and we can get him.
He might be more effective. Who knows?
Yeah. So he'll be my first choice for the next meeting, and
Okay.
that's only in 2 weeks. So we'll get something out this weekend to him. And
And
We
Peter,
had the
you were
sewer
also going to,
Hmm.
think about members of the select board who have not appeared before us in the past.
Oh, yeah, Dr. McNabb and Matt Fee.
Yeah.
Right.
No,
Yeah, I would go.
Matt
I would go for Matt Fee right
Matt
now. I
Fee is-
think. Yeah.
appeared many times with us, but
And
Yeah,
the
but not
sewer
recently.
director, I think, is also good because they're talking about raising the sewer fees. That's a very active issue.
Mhm.
Okay. Okie dokie. Let's see. I'm sort of skipping over a report from the PR committee. Do you have anything that you need to tell us?
No, only that I did send it, once we got Libby confirmed, I did send out the press release to everybody, and the only publication that picked it up was the Current, which ran it in a very hidden spot. So I'll reach out. I mean, it's better for me to have it about 10 days ahead so I can get it to them the weekend before our meeting. But I'll continue to try to do the best I can on that.
Okay, I think your problem is the current chairman who gets things done at the last minute. Okay, let's see, any public comment that we have not already heard? And I'm not seeing any hands. Okay. New business, I think it's time, our new business ought to be adjournment.
Yes.
Unless anybody has anything.
when's our next meeting?
I
Second.
think it's
When?
When?
August 2nd,
August 2nd.
Saturday, in the trailer.
Okay, good.
In
Okay.
person?
Okay.
What's the
What
next
date
meeting?
is it?
August 2nd in the trailer, 10 o'clock.
10
That's
o'clock.
3 weeks from today.
Correct.
Okay, great.
Okay,
Sounds good. Thank you.
motion to adjourn,
So moved.
Second.
second, all in favor,
Aye.
Aye.
see you in 3 weeks.
Yes.
Take care.
Thank
Have a
you,
good,
Peter.
have a
Everybody.
good weekend, everybody.
Kathy.
Bye-bye.
Yep,
Bye-bye.
bye-bye.